Welcome, world, to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. I am Reverend Sandy Rogers, and as the creator of this historic event, it is my pleasure to welcome you. We come together to bring you this historic event. We have practitioners, holistic practitioners, we have medical doctors, we have spiritual individuals. This event is so lovingly dedicated to my mother, Mrs. Barbara Dean Brown. And my mother taught me like 40 plus years ago about the importance and the meaning behind herbs. And she would always say, we don't know what they putting in those pills, so you better not, get hooked on prescription drugs. And so we listened to Mom, but not all of us paid attention. My sister, bless her heart, was diagnosed recently thereafter with asthma, and she was prescribed prednisone, which is a very powerful steroid. And my sister actually got hooked on steroids like someone out on the street kind of hooked, like on heroin or crack or something like that. And so my mom and my sister are both on the other side, living in the other dimension, but they're upholding me, and this is dedicated to their memory. So we don't want to come and make you change your mind about what you're doing. We just want to provide information to you, something different, so that you have options to choose from, so that you're not stuck. Because the environment that we now live in, the fast foods, the toxins in the air that we breathe and in the water that we drink, and the processed foods, and all of that is causing havoc on this precious body temple. So God created our bodies to heal themselves, but they can only heal themselves when they're fed and they're nourished and they're stress-free. And so the 60 or so or more experts that we have are bringing you this worldwide wellness movement in an attempt to share their testimonies and their information with you. So we have from age 14 on up. I don't even know what the oldest age is. I think 88 or something. So you see, that's a wide range of knowledge that we're bringing you. And so we hope that you come and that you get all the knowledge that you need to affect a positive change on your life, and share this with others. It's free, it's online, and so we're just so thankful that you decided to be a part of our listening community, the viewing community, and we certainly appreciate you for giving us your time of day and your energy and your efforts to being with us and to being a part of this historic event. We have pulled together people of color for you, by you, right? So we want to make sure that you understand that we too, melanated people with color, can enjoy, practice, and participate in some of these modalities that others have been doing for centuries, and that is pretty new to our community. So we talk about Qigong, we talk about meditation, yoga, spiritual work from a different perspective than religion. So we talk about the spirituality aspect. We talk about abuse in the families. We talk about all kinds of subjects because we know that in our communities there are layers and layers and layers and layers of stuff that we never talk about that's causing a negative effect on our bodies and its healing process. So we address it, whatever it is, and we hope that you will benefit from the many experts that we have, and that you walk away with lots of knowledge and lots of new information, and that you become fully empowered to share information with others. So thank you for being with us. We love you and we bless you, and we look forward to doing this again. But thanks for being here with the first one. We appreciate you.
Life, love, and wellness. Life, love, and wellness.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to Life, Love, and Wellness Global, a worldwide wellness movement. So today we're honored and blessed to have Dr. William Richardson with us. And I first met Dr. Richardson in the beginning of 2015 when I had suffered a skin condition that no one else could help me to resolve, and so it's just getting worse and worse, and I was unable to wear shoes, and it was really an awful situation. And I was blessed to be introduced to Dr. Richardson. And what intrigued me most about how Dr. Richardson works his practice is I thought I was going to go in and he was going to write me a prescription. I mean, that's all the other doctors do. But he asked so many questions, and we had a very long interview. Dr. Richardson got to know me as a person, which is so unusual in this medical day and age, because people just want to, get your symptoms and write you a prescription and then you're done. But that's not how Dr. Richardson operates, and I believe his holistic approach is so needed in our community for us to do a complete healing process. And so, ladies and gentlemen, I welcome you to the life of Dr. William Richardson. And Dr. Richardson, would you just briefly tell us some background information on you, how you got started and who you are and what, okay?
I'd be glad to. Hello, everyone. And I always like to say I'm representing ACPM.net. That stands for American Clinics for Preventive Medicine, or Advanced Clinics for Preventive Medicine. And I started out wanting to be a doctor at the age of 3 because my father was a doctor. His father was my grandfather was a coal and ice deliverer in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania from Mississippi. And so I'm a doctor for 3 reasons: to help people, to make a legitimate living for my family, and to understand and study science. That's what I like. I especially like helping people as much as possible. So that's been a passion from the beginning of my thoughts about going into medicine. So I went the traditional route of going into medical school, and before that I studied biochemistry, physics, math, science, African dance, guitar, bass, yoga, meditation. So I had a nice, well-rounded background going into medical school. And when I was in medical school, I remained holistically orientated, if you will. In medical school, I studied Kung Fu, Jiu-Jitsu, meditation, Chinese medicine, tennis, guitar. We just had lots of fun, but really studied hard. So medical school gives you an excellent background. But I wasn't satisfied with the therapeutics they offered, so I supplemented it by learning herbology, reading books like Back to Eden, Jethro Kloss, herbal books. My friends were kind of hippies in and out of medical school, so we'd experiment on different herbs to see the effects on our bodies. And so that fascinated me, and so when I was studying at the University of Pittsburgh after medical school, a patient gave me the opportunity. He asked me to create a program for him to get rid of his diabetes with no drugs. Well, I didn't tell my professors, and I wrote my first lifestyle plan, and it worked. His sugars were in the 400s, and we got him down to under 90. And I was amazed. I didn't even tell my professors, because I learned by then you have to be careful what you tell superiors if they don't know something. And so that went on, and I moved to Atlanta in '84 after 5 years of training in preventive medicine, internal medicine, emergency medicine, herbology, and different things. And I started seeing patients in my car because there was nowhere else to sit down. And my friend said, hey, you need to get an office. So I did, and that's how the ACPM.net was born. And I've been seeing patients ever since 1986 in Atlanta. And so we've had great results oftentimes, and lots of fun and lots of love between myself and the community at large and my patients in particular.
Well, wonderful. It sounds like you really did a lot of study in a number of areas that treat the whole person. Is there a particular category that you would label your practice in? I know you said it's advanced medicine.
Yeah, well, basically it's holistic primary care, and then people come in with problems and they want results. So the reason I exist and my clinic exists is because we many times are able to get results other doctors can't, because we look at things so holistically, so multifactorially. And actually right now I'm training 3 other doctors to come into my clinic, and they're getting their diets together, getting discipline, and learning my protocols. We have a nurse practitioner as well. So we're expanding.
That's excellent. Your work is so much needed in our community, especially with the number of diseases that seem to be just popping up. And I believe that it may be a result of our lifestyles and the foods that we eat, the air that we breathe, the lack of exercise. But I'm so impressed with the methods and the methodologies that you use. I remember that part of my problem was in having heavy metals.
Well, it's a heavy metal test that you measure after you take a particular treatment called chelation therapy. And you would wonder how heavy metals, what these toxic metals have to do with skin problems or other inflammatory problems. But they are pro-inflammatory chemicals. In other words, the lead and cadmium in our systems stimulate inflammation in arteries, cause hardening of the arteries. They stimulate inflammation in the skin and in the bowels and anywhere else they can go. I've got people with neurodegenerative diseases like Parkinson's, and I'm working with them to get rid of the heavy metals so at least we can stop the progression of that disease.
And so the heavy metals, just so people understand, you can be affected from cavities or fillings that's in the
Correct.
Cavities. For me, back in my 20s, I was on a prescription medicine called Tagamet that was pretty new on the market back then, and because I took it for so long, it was in my system. What are some of the other ways that a person can be contaminated, so to speak, with heavy metal?
Absolutely. Well, you mentioned the amalgam fillings are 52%, the so-called silver fillings are 52% mercury. You can get that also from contaminated seafood. We've inundated our environment with lead. Modern people have 10,000 times more lead than pre-industrial people, 10,000 times. And they didn't really have to put in the gas, that was just greed. And modern people have that lead, they have that cadmium, which comes from industrial pollution. The powers that be, they brag, hey, we put out, instead of 475 million metric tons of arsenic this year, we cut it down a few million tons. I mean, so it's very interesting. And also the showers we take. Taking showers, the more showers you take in America, the more cancer you can get. So it's important to use shower filters, we sell shower filters. You get them at health food stores, hardware stores, because you get more pollution taking a shower than you do drinking polluted water.
Wow.
So it's a lot of things to be aware of and look out for. Heavy metal, our chelation therapy that we use for heavy metal detoxification is a primary treatment for hardening of the arteries. I remember I started doing that 25 years ago, and one of my cardiology buddies, he said, well, it may work, Richardson, but it sounds like snake oil to me. And now I'm getting ready to send him an article from the American Journal of Cardiology where it has chelation therapy featured. I remember when I was in medical school, there was a woman who had breast cancer, and I was part of a team rounding in a hospital in Philadelphia. And I was the youngest member of the team, and the other team members said they couldn't think of anything to do to help her at all. They couldn't think of a thing. I said, well, how about 10 grams of vitamin C intravenously, IV? And they looked at me like I committed a sin. I had to go in front of the dean and say why I even wanted to be a doctor. Now IV vitamin C is in every major city in this nation and most cities in the world.
Why does that new ideas and new approaches threaten? You may not be able to answer it overall, but in your opinion, why are the traditional methods threatened? Because it's written, and you just have to follow the protocol as is written, and there's no room for a brilliant mind such as yours to be able to come up with something different.
Yeah, that's a great question. I always said these types of evils are associated with fear, greed, and ignorance. Fear, greed, and ignorance. So what I tell my patients is that I want to make it so you don't need me anymore. I want to make it, what really turns me on in medicine is getting rid of things so people don't need me anymore. And I tell people I'll be your gardener, your guitar player, your moving man. I'm not attached to you being sick, and I'm really not. I think doctors should, well, at our clinic we also sell health. I have a elder patient, dear patient, and she said, hey, how can I live to be 125? I said, well, you need shower filters. So I sold her a couple of shower filters. So I do sell a lot of herbs, a lot of equipment and things like that. So it gives me more time to sit down and talk to patients. I think doctors in general should learn how to make money in various ways so you're not dependent on just using prescription drugs. I think you should be innovative and be willing to be flexible. I'm talking to all the potential practitioners out there. In a way, this is shocking, but I don't necessarily believe in holistic alternative medicine. I believe in good medicine that's holistic and has alternatives. Because you mean to tell me that right now, in 2017, the major hospitals in this great city of Atlanta still are selling Big Macs, burgers, steaks, and all the foods that obviously cause cancer and heart disease. Is that alternative medicine, or just bad medicine, or just greed, or just fear, or ignorance?
It's a great question you coming back at us with, so we appreciate that. And so, for the most part, we are given a prescription as to how much foods and different items we should eat, with your recommended daily allowances or your daily value of what you should, but it's not really slanted at living foods or foods that will help a body. But it seems like it's another one of those situations that create bad health or diseases in the body.
And wealth for certain segments of society. So absolutely, the more processed the food is, the more money you can make from it. So the ultimate processed food is meat, and then junk food. And don't forget, these foods create chemicals in the body that take you from just ordinary pleasure to very exciting pleasure. When you eat junk food full of calories and everything, it takes you up. But what comes up has to come down, and they don't excite you anymore. And when you eat healthy food, it's not as exciting. So you almost have to go through a cleansing and a fast so you can rebound your taste buds, and ordinary healthy food can taste good again. So unhealthy food is like drugs and can be addictive.
Yeah, I learned that on one of the documentaries in The Office. Dr. Richardson makes sure that as you're sitting and taking the chelation treatments that you're educated as well with documentaries, and so he has a vast library of different documentaries. And I believe it was Super Size Me, where the guy that went on a 30-day diet of only eating McDonald's, and whenever one of the people, the associates at McDonald's would ask him if he wanted supersized, he would take it. And he was talking about how it affected, his penis and just all kinds of the heart, the chest, and everything.
That gets into a great discussion, because when I went to Africa initially in 1990, I met my friend's father, who was 96 years old and still taking care of all 6 of his wives in every way.
Wow.
And his sister was 122, still walking 2 miles a day and gardening. So I was very impressed. I learned a lot in Africa, because Africa is important, because that's where people originated from. People should study the lifestyles and behavior of Africans, especially living the indigenous way. And then I come to America, back to America, and in my practice, I'm meeting 47-year-old men who have erectile dysfunction. And actually, the United States has less than about 7 or 8% of the world's population, but they have 1/3 or greater than 33% of the world's male impotent population. So why is that? In fact, erectile dysfunction is, even porn can cause erectile dysfunction because you can wear your brain cells out with that. But the regular erectile dysfunction is most likely related to hardening of the arteries, and that's related to cigarettes, diabetes, out of control, animal products, and that sort of thing. Now, same with all the Alzheimer's or the Alzheimer's-like diseases. That's related to hardening of the arteries. If you keep your heart healthy, you're going to keep your penis healthy, you're going to keep your brain healthy. So that's really, really important. And also, I think a lot of people should realize, especially commercial chicken, is effeminizing men. It's causing men to get gynecomastia or grow breasts. It's causing boys to play chicken, especially commercial chicken. It's causing boys to play with girls' toys. And it goes in the uterus of women and effeminizes male brains, so they come out half effeminized. So this is serious stuff, folks. So eating meat is not manly.
Yeah.
Gorillas don't eat it. Gorillas eat greens as a primary food, and fruits and things like that. And they eat it raw, of course, so that's powerful. But even if you eat cooked food, really try to avoid the animal products, no doubt.
That's so amazing to hear you say that, especially from a society that say you should have meat and that's the only way that you can get the protein that you need in your body. So one of the ways that I like to address that, and if you would please expound on it, is that we get protein from animals only because the animals have eaten the grass. They've eaten the greens, and that's where the proteins really come from.
That's right, and the iron in red meat really isn't good for you. It's actually harmful. It's better to get iron from dark green leafy vegetables. So actually, per calorie, the number one food in the world that gives humans protein are greens per calorie. So you have to eat a whole lot. So gorillas eat, they eat 50 to 60 pounds of fruits, vegetables, seeds, and nuts per day. They eat 22 pounds of greens per day. And 1 pound of greens one bunch of kale isn't even a pound. So these animals are eating lots of greens. Now, so that we would be eating 5 hours a day if we just ate raw greens and fruit, but we can make smoothies, and we also have things like sweet potatoes and things that have more concentrated calories, so you don't have to spend all your time eating. You can eat that raw, or you can bake it, but of course you kill it. You kill the life force when you do cook things. Sometimes it can make certain nutrients more available, but generally you should eat mostly raw food. Raw greens are wonderful, and it's good to mix it with your saliva. No matter how you consume greens, take your time if you make a smoothie and chew your smoothie. Don't put too much fruit in, because that'll free the fructose in fruit and cause problems with sugar accumulation. Mostly eat. But it really, I know from my personal experience, eating that way, plant-based, lots of raw food, good balanced food, it really makes you feel really good. And you don't want the unnatural false highs of meat and sugar and grease and all that stuff.
Yeah, because I think you took an example from Baba over in Africa, because you're in your later 60s and you can still party and hang with your children.
Well, actually mid-60s.
Okay,
but,
okay.
No, I love dancing anyway, and I took African American dance in school. So I played bass for the Pittsburgh African American Dance Company for years. I think dancing is one of my favorite things to do. There's no doubt about that.
And so that movement is extremely important also.
It really is.
Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. One should stretch, do movement in the form of walking, fast walking, or maybe occasionally running. And weightlifting, all those sorts of things, push-ups, those sorts of things. Now, of course, ancient people naturally did that, but we have to artificially do that because sometimes our biggest effort may be reaching down to turn on a computer. So we do have to do that. Also do meditation. I went to a meditation camp for 10 days, and that accelerated that part. So it's really great to have a great lifestyle. Because like you were saying before, Sandy, 65% of your health is related to your lifestyle. 21% is related to environment. And that can be psychosocial environment as well. And then 14% of your health is related to genetics and, quote, appropriate health care, which would mean, if you come in with a blood pressure of 280 over 180, you probably may need some medicine. Or if you are having chest pain and your cholesterol is 540, you may need some medicines to help control, the nitroglycerin and all that sort of stuff. But then you can get weaned off of that most of the time if you adopt a natural lifestyle. And that's what we love doing, is taking people off of medications in our clinic whenever possible. So we've taken people off of 6 medicines, 7 medicines, 5 medicines, 4 medicines, so we really get off on taking people off of medicines. I mean, if we put people on medicine, it's only because it's medically necessary at the time. But if you start high blood pressure medicine, you do not have to stay on it forever. You can wean off of it. Because in the year 1900, there wasn't one case of high blood pressure found on the whole continent of Africa. Not one case of obesity, diabetes. Most cancer just wasn't there. The top 4 cancers in America are lung, breast, colon, and prostate. In a 1994 study by medical missionary Dr. Burkitt in South Africa, the rural blacks living the natural way, they didn't have one case of those cancers. No ulcerative colitis. And they ate a lower fat diet, about 5 to 14% fat. So now we talk about the paleo diet and all that sort of thing. Well, that is for a certain time period when the ice age hit in certain areas. They may have been forced to eat animal products, but most of the world, in fact, Asia and Africa were traditionally spared the ravages of modern industrial diseases because their diets were not meat and refined food based. Unfortunately, that's changing. And we have to get the word out to Africa and Asia as well, to hold on to some of the traditions that quite well work.
So is there an intersection with modern allopathic, neuropathic, and ancestral healing and or medicine?
Absolutely. A doctor in about 1979 from Syria told me when he was a boy in Syria, he got an infection on his arm. And he went to, quote, little old lady, which are very wise, beautiful, right? In a basement somewhere, she had moldy bread concoctions and put it on his arm. It made it feel better, but his mother said, "You can't go there. You have to go to the experts," and took him to a hospital. Then we had chemicals that burned him, hurt him, didn't work. He went back to the healer using moldy bread on her own. Of course, that moldy bread was penicillin. And so the so-called alternative medicine of today can be mainstream medicine in the future. But of course, then they took that penicillin, used it for viruses and everything, and made superbugs. So the ancestral healing, see, let's put it in perspective. The best things about modern medicine are 2 things, and an African doctor explained this while we were philosophizing. He was a cancer specialist, and I was treating an African woman. And he just happened to be, Nigerians are extremely intelligent, Africans in general, so many of them are doctors and everything else. But we were talking about it, and he said, when I analyzed it, the 2 things about so-called modern medicine that are superior are diagnostic ability and sterility. If you get ready to operate on the brain, you want sterility. Of course, ancient Africans, they did C-sections sterilely. They used banana wine. They sewed the person up. They did it successfully. In fact, English people sent expeditions to Africa before it was so messed over and ruined, to learn how to do that, to take it back to England to perfect their surgery. So the whole point is a shaman, or let's say a healer or a medicine man in most indigenous cultures, it could prevent or treat about 95% or maybe 96 or 7% of the modern diseases that bother us so much now. Now, as far as major trauma, modern diagnostic techniques and surgery you can't beat. But as far as the multiple sclerosis, the psoriasis, the heart disease, the cancers, just the indigenous diet alone would prevent a lot of that. And the lifestyle, because of the more, let's say, stable family environments and all that sort of stuff, would prevent a lot of diseases. I mean, it's no mistake that Richard Pryor got multiple sclerosis when he married and divorced 6 times. You know how much stress that is? Then blew himself up with cocaine. So these types of things can shock the immune system and start autoimmune disorders. I've studied this. Many people have autoimmune disorders. Many people, because it's very chaotic and stressful in the modern environment. I've been to African villages, and you have no idea how the culture is. In fact, you won't get a glimpse, in my opinion, of normal humanity until you get to an African village, sit down and shut up. Meaning, be humble and try to learn something. Now, you may know some things, but they know things too. So that's how I look at things. You can learn something from a wino, but certainly you can learn something from a Chinese medicine healer or a Chinese grandmother. You can learn a lot of things from grandmothers. I learned a lot from older people, and I use it to help younger people, especially psychosocial.
Life, love, and wellness.
Hi, my name is Carla DeRosa, and I'm a wellness rock star. And you can find me on the World Wide Web at rawxit.com. That's rocket.com. And so my mission in life is to help people transition into a plant-based lifestyle. And the way I got to where I am is in 2011, I had my own health crisis. I was listless. I had severe gastrointestinal problems, and I had these problems all my life. And what I realized that I had systemic candida throughout my body. Typically we think of candida as just being like vaginal, like a yeast infection, but it could be anywhere. It could be in your brain, it could be in your gut, and mine was in my gut. And so I went raw for 10 days and all my symptoms went away. A lifetime of symptoms went away in 10 days of doing raw. And I had a very knowledgeable coach to help me navigate and learn how to apply raw food principles to my life and allow my body to heal in that short period of time. So I continued to be 100% raw for 4 months, and then after that 6 months I went to like 80-20, 80% raw, 20% cooked, and now 5 years later, 5 or 6 years later, I'm at about 50-50. And I am not on any medications. I'm turning 50 this year, and I feel very energized, and I love this. And I love being able to introduce people to raw food and support them as they transition. So I run cleanses and classes. And so today I want to talk to you about what I think is the most important part of raw food. So what I think is the most important part of raw food is greens. How to incorporate greens. And so when I'm teaching people, I'm teaching them green smoothies, I'm teaching them what to do with young greens, mature greens. And so today I'm going to share with you just a couple things. One is a recipe from my book, Rock Your Life, 21 Delicious Plant-Based Recipes. And I'm going to share with you the Rockstar Greens. So the Rockstar Green is a very easy recipe, get you started, and it's very savory. So a lot of times people have it, they can't even believe it's a raw recipes, because when I go out and I do demos in the world, I don't necessarily say raw food over here. I just have food sitting out, people come up and they're like, wow, this is delicious. And so what I do with the spices is I create a feedback loop that you eat it, your brain is like, wow, that tastes good, and so you want it again. And so I have transitioned people who don't eat greens at all to eating kale and collards. People on the street stop me and say, you know, if it wasn't for you, I would have never eaten kale. Now I eat kale. I thought it was a garnish. So I'm going to talk you through Rockstar Greens, and also I'm going to talk to you about a special herb that I use for my clients and students called moringa, which is a powerful superfood. So 2 greens that can help you fill up your nutritional deficits so you don't feel hungry, so you have everything you need and you have energy. All right, so now we're gonna go to the Rockstar Greens. So here in the Rockstar Greens, I am gonna use kale. This is Siberian kale. And also I'm gonna use collards. So these are all mature greens. And so one of the things I notice when people are using greens, that they will take the stems off or cut the stems off. Remember, you're buying food by the pound, and the stems are the heaviest part. The stems are actually where you're pulling the minerals and nutrition out of the ground. So if you take all the stems off, then basically you're cutting out a lot of the water, a lot of the minerals, and you're just left with the leaf. And the leaf is the most tender part, so I understand why people are attracted to it, but it is more like this panel. It's like the solar panel. It doesn't hold as many nutrients as the stem. So when I am taking the edges of the stem, I just take a little portion off like that, and I leave all of my stem, right? So that you get that food that's actually in the stem. And I'm using the stem by cutting it very thin, so people hardly even know that the stem is in the recipe. A lot of times they're like, well, the stem is too thick to eat. No, if you do your work on the cutting board, then it won't be too thick to eat. And so basically I'm going to do about half of this recipe, because this recipe that's in the book, it makes a lot. So this is about half. So you're going to use about a half a pound in the recipe, which is about 10 leaves. So I'm using about 5 or 6 nice sized leaves. I am really cutting them very finely. The more work you do on the cutting board, the less you have to do in your mouth. And so people always challenge if humans are designed to eat greens, if we're designed to be vegetarians. And so I'm not a vegetarian myself. I'm plant positive, primary plant eating whole foods. I do think eating plants is primarily what human beings should be doing to support their body. And my proof is that we have all these molars. And so if we didn't have jobs and tapings and filmings and appointments and school, like all the other animals, we'd be sitting around chewing our grains, right? Like deer and cow. And so I'm using the cutting board to get that process started. So everybody should be eating greens, chewing about 40 to 50 bites per forkful, right? And that's going to break down the leaves so you have access to all those micronutrients. So what you really want in terms of micronutrients are the amino acids, because that leads me to another question. They're like, well, if you don't eat meat, where do you get your protein? So you might not be able to tell, but I'm extremely muscular. And where I get my protein from is not meat, not a complete protein, is that I make my own protein. When you have enough amino acids, when you have what they call the essential amino acids, you actually make protein in your body. So your body is a protein making machine. No one ever tells us that. It's like, oh, you gotta have protein, you gotta have complete protein or you'll be protein deficient. So think about it, when we drop off the care packages, no one's ever dropping off beef jerky. Like that's not, that's not the thing. So what we need is amino acids, we need greens. And by the way, many of the countries that used to accept those care packages, now they're propagating their own moringa. They don't even fool with that. So greens can provide what we need. All right, so I'm gonna keep it moving. So now we have our leaves shredded, nice small pieces of leaves. And one of the good things about making it small is that it's gonna now capture the flavors of your seasoning. Very simple recipe. We're going to add a little bit of olive oil. So we definitely have to be careful with our oils. So you know, heart disease is the #1 killer of Americans. And it's growing for other populations around the world that are trying to keep up with Western lifestyle. So one of the things we heavily lean into is vegetable oil. What is that? It's a mystery mixed omega-6 rich oil that really doesn't agree with the body. And so I always recommend that we are very particular about our oils. We don't heat up oils unless they're saturated. This is from Bragg's. This is their organic olive oil, and it has a little bit of 3-6-9s. Human beings are designed to have omega-3s to omega-6 1-to-1. So in our standard American diet, our lifestyle, Americans have omega-6 to omega-3 at 20-to-1. And that's what's scraping up our arteries and causing heart disease and blockages. So even with the olive oil, we're only going to use 2 tablespoons, just enough to get the leaves wet. And since this is about half the recipe, I'm just going to do 1 tablespoon. So everything I'm going to half it. And so I'm just going to mix it. And so if you're making food for other people, you might want to wear gloves. But when you're making it for yourself, you want to put your energy and your love into your food, and it makes it a lot more tasty and a lot more energized. So I'm just making sure that every piece of leaf is moist with the oil. We don't want to overdo it with the oils. Even the good oils causes our arteries to temporarily relax. And so when they go back to straighten out, again, that causes scar tissue. So we want to use very little oil in our recipes. Next, we're going to use nutritional yeast. The recipe calls for about 3 tablespoons, so I'm going to put a little bit less than that. I rarely measure. Garlic powder. Recipe calls for 1 tablespoon, so I'm going to put about half of that. And be careful with your garlic powder, because garlic powder can be very, very hot if you use too much. Take it from me, I know. Onion powder, about the same amount. The recipe calls for 1 tablespoon. Put about half of that in. Okay. And we're going to top off our seasonings with Himalayan salt. So Himalayan salt is pink and red and brown. It has about 80 minerals. Please, please, please never use table salt. It used to be like this, and it was burned at 12,000 degrees to take out all the minerals. So it actually has no nutrition. We add iodine back into it to call it a food. But it causes high blood pressure, as you probably know. And it also is a poison to the body, and it causes inflammation. So we use Himalayan salt because the body is like, wow, all those minerals, it's got to be a food, and it assimilates it very well. And you only need a small amount. So the recipe calls for 1/2 teaspoon. So I'm going to even use less than that, right? Because we're halving this recipe. So once you get all your spices in, now you could go back to loving on your mixture. And so the point of this is to get all the seasonings to every single leaf, right? So every bite is kind of bursting with flavor. So I read this amazing book about the history of synthetic flavoring, and it talks a lot about Doritos and how we got hooked on junk food because our brain thinks we're going to get certain minerals. So we take a bite of one of those chips and we're like, ooh, we're gonna get garlic, cumin, turmeric. But really, and also the brain translates that to, oh, we're gonna get manganese, copper, sulfur. But then actually, we take a bite and nothing's there. So then we take another bite and we take another bite. We take another bite. Next thing you know, we ate a whole household bag of those chips, right? And no nutrition. So my goal in life is to use that same trickery to get people back hooked on whole foods, right? So if the body is getting what it needs, it's going to start asking for it. People are like, oh, do I have to become a vegan? I'm like, no, just add these foods to what you're doing and your body will develop a preference for these foods. I really challenge people to combine them because your body's smart. It'll figure it out. You don't have to deprive yourself. You'll start to make different choices. So a couple more things I want to add before I finish the recipe. So this is shredded sweet potato, and so it's raw. So I love using raw sweet potato because in certain communities, in my community, diabetes is on the rise, even for children. It's crazy. And so that is a sign of a very weak pancreas. And pancreas makes enzymes, it makes insulin, it's doing all sorts of things. It's balancing sugar. So it's a very busy organ and it looks like a sweet potato. Isn't that interesting? And so, but when you use it raw, somehow it supports the healing of the pancreas if you use a sweet potato raw. And we really don't know why. But it's amazing because think about it, when you're taking insulin or you're just trying to adjust your diet, that doesn't necessarily heal the pancreas. But this does support the healing, not cooked sweet potato, but raw. So I shredded it. You can also make it into noodles using a spiralizer. You can also put it in smoothies. You can also put it in a food processor. I make raw sweet potato pie. So there's endless combinations. You can make sweet potato souffle. But get some raw sweet potatoes in you, okay? So the recipe calls for about a half a cup. So I'm just gonna put a few in here. And then also a quarter cup of dry cranberries, okay? And I'm just gonna mix it. And like I said, this recipe is in my book, very easy. I was talking you through it. But if I wasn't talking, I probably could put this together in less than 10 minutes. So very, very easy, very filling, very tasty. I offer this at demos all the time, and I don't come back with any food because people just love it. They want to buy it. I'm like, no, it's free. It's a demo. They're like, I want more. So that's Rockstar Greens. So an easy place to start to incorporate raw food in your life. And I want to give you one more tip. So we've been taught that we should have a low-fat diet, low-fat bull, no low-fat diets. We need fat for our nervous system, especially for our brain. Our brain is fat. So I love to get an avocado in. I try to get it in every day. It doesn't always work out that way, but at least a couple times a week. And one of the things I do to improve the taste and the nutrition of my avocado is that I will add moringa. So I promised you that I was tell you about moringa. So moringa is a herb, so you might be able to see it here. It's actually a tree. People refer to it as the tree of life. It's a very old tree, and so the root systems go deep. So it pulls out a lot of minerals. It has virtually all the minerals, about 80 minerals. There's about 93 minerals, and 80 of the minerals have been found in moringa. It has all the amino acids, meaning that once you eat it, it becomes a protein in your body. And so I love this to help my clients transition because it fills their nutritional deficit, as I mentioned earlier, and so you feel full. So some people use this like as a diet tool to help people cut their appetite. But what I do is I'll shake some right on avocado, and it helps to increase the nutrition of my avocado, and then I'll just scoop it out and eat it. Now I'll travel with this. So I'm not a big person on pills, and that's how I got to raw food, because I was like, I want to heal my body with food, right? And but also I noticed that a lot of people in the health world, we do a lot of supplements, a lot of capsules. Well, remember, digestion was my problem. So even when I take a lot of supplements and capsules, they get stuck somewhere down in there. And it reminds me of a 60-minute special that I saw with a plumber talking about how he made his money off of opening up these pipes and finding all this medication undissolved. He could read the scripts on it. So that always stuck in my mind. I was like, well, they're not getting the benefits of their medicine, but yet they're putting it in their body, is dehydrating them. And so for me, I always want to have my food as medicine. So even when I do have capsules, because I definitely recommend enzymes, I definitely recommend probiotics, I'll open up my capsules and I'll put it in my mouth, I'll put it in my food as a way to get my food medicine, but not necessarily in the capsules. And they do have vegan glycerin capsules, and some people have no problem with it. But if you're somebody who really does just want to eat your food medicine, be thinking about how you can incorporate herbs in your food without capsules. And I do this with all sorts of herbs. So it's just been such a pleasure to be here with you. I love talking about food. In fact, that's how I got to raw food, probably being a food addict. And hopefully I've shifted my attention to food that builds the body and builds the spirit. And so those are the two recipes that I wanted to share with you.
Thank you, Carla, for your expertise in preparing raw foods. Now, you have a family. Is your family involved in the same eating lifestyle that you've chosen? Did they automatically transition as you did, or was that a different time frame when they became on board?
Well, my kids were 5 and 6 when I started transitioning, but my husband, he was already primarily plant-based. So my husband was real easy. In fact, we had sometimes power struggles around, him eating up all my raw food. And but my children, they were different. They weren't necessarily raised on McDonald's, because I was trying to be conscious minded, but they did eat fast food. They did eat more processed foods. And so I do, in my household, we focus on whole foods. And but my kids, they go to a public charter school, so they get food from the cafeteria. Sometimes they happily report back that they got a smoothie one day or a salad, but they're free to choose what they want to choose when they're outside of the house. At home, they're gonna have Rockstar Greens, and sometimes they want their food steamed, but we'll be eating the same food. I'll steam theirs and I'll have mine raw, but they are open to raw food. So one trick that I have, that I started when my kids were really small, was that they weren't used to eating raw greens, like the Rockstar Greens, right? And so, but they like macaroni and cheese. I think it's Annie Organics macaroni and cheese. So I make the macaroni and cheese, and I would cut up the kale just like I did, really, really small, and I put it in the macaroni and cheese. And there's no way you can separate the kale from the macaroni and cheese. And they just start eating it, and now they eat the kale all by itself. They'll ask for it. And so I think it takes being patient with people who are transitioning, especially your family who may not be choosing to transition. I just always make sure we have raw food available, produce, fruits and vegetables. A really good habit to have is every day to make a veggie tray. Cut up carrots, celery, I cut up sweet potatoes, broccoli, florets, and even the stem of the broccoli is good, cauliflower, and I'll put it out, and my kids, they'll roll their eyes, but by the end of the day, that veggie tray is gotten lower and lower. And what I'll do is I'll put like a bowl of ice under it to keep it cool. And that has been one strategy, because all day people are going in the pantry looking for a snack. But if I have the veggies laid out there, the veggies do get eaten. And I think that, again, like I was telling people, just try it. just try incorporating more produce, your body will start to develop, oh, okay, I do need more celery. I do need, more sweet potatoes, and you'll develop a taste for it. But because we've been on this feedback loop with the synthetic synthetic flavorings, it does take a transition. And that's why I love the concentrated flavors of dry seasonings. And I really do recommend organic dry seasonings. Because just imagine you have a field of onions or garlics that they're spraying pesticides on them, then when they go to dehydrate, those pesticides have trace metals. They're even more concentrated. So, there are times when we go to the store and maybe we can't find, organic kale, so we get the conventional. We do the best that we can. But in terms of spices, I would say be very, very meticulous, because they have concentrate of whatever was used to propagate that particular herb or vegetable.
Excellent advice. And you teach all over the city. You help farmers and the farmer markets to do demos so that people are aware of how to combine certain foods to make it easy. And so that's really helpful for people to be able to learn. So the individuals that are watching this particular webinar are from all around the world.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any particular hints or suggestions or advice you would give to people that want to pursue a more plant-based diet?
Yes. So first of all, I would say there's all sorts of local farmers all over the world looking to move their produce. I worked on a farm for about a year, and one of the things I noticed is that since they don't have commercials or advertising, once the produce comes out of the ground, it's got to move. So I would say reach out to your local growers, and that gives you more control. You know what they're using. You can visit. You can find out if they're using pesticides, no pesticides, natural propagation methods, because you want clean food, right? Because your food ultimately becomes your body. And so once you hook up with those farmers, I would allow them to educate you. So they have something called CSAs, community, I think it's called community service agriculture or something like that. But anyway, what it is that you purchase a box. Systematically, you get produce, and you're going to get different things in there. You're going to get beets, you're going to get turnips, you're going to get celery, you're going to get things that you might not go when you go to the big box stores. We have a tendency to say, oh, okay, I learned how to make this spinach smoothie, so we make this spinach smoothie over and over again. But every single piece of produce has phytotoxins. So it has phytonutrients, plant nutrients, but they also have plant toxins. So you can poison yourself by overdoing anything. And so I love, because I get a box from local farmers. It's a woman, she's a collective, she goes around to local farmers and she brings me stuff that I don't even know what it is. And it's great because it challenges me to research the produce, to try it out, and if I bought it, baby, it is not going to waste, right? I'm going to work with it. And that's one of the things too, is that we'll buy fresh produce, but we'll also buy a lot of the processed foods. And the next thing you know, we're throwing out the produce because we've been preferring the processed foods. So I'm saying eliminate or minimize the processed foods, focus on the fresh produce, and allow their short shelf life to support you in using them, using different produces. And again, once you start eating the different produce, your body is gonna be like, okay, that was pretty good, I like that. Like here, I shredded this sweet potato, I use it in my kale. I can also just put some seasonings and eat it by itself. I could put it in soup, I could put it in another salad with romaine lettuce. So I can use it many different ways. And so that's the thing, if you don't have it, if it's like this, it's just gonna sit around and grow leaves and grow eyes. So as soon as you get your produce, start preparing it. and challenge yourself to use it before it's gone, because every day it's exposed to a little bit of oxidation, it loses a little bit of nutrition. But if you go ahead and invest $20 in produce, then you have maybe 3 days. But now you're probably going to be more 60%, 70% whole foods than you ever were, right? So don't throw that produce away. Open your mind to buy different produce that you didn't know was there. Visit your local farmers. Make those plates. Make those veggie plates, right? Have it sitting out in bowls. Like I have this grapefruit, and I just have it on the table. And it reminds everybody in my house, take a grapefruit. And I have an apple one. I have an orange one. So that's the reminder. It's got to be out and it's got to be used. No throwaway food.
Excellent, excellent. And just one quick note as far as produce being in season. When we have genetically modified crops, you can buy the same fruit or vegetable all year round. But organic fruits and vegetables have seasons where they're grown. So how important is that?
Oh my gosh, that's very important. And that's why it would be important to work with your local farmers. So one of the places where I buy is a co-op, and again, they get local produce. They can't make things out of season. So it's interesting because we want apples all year round, but like right now it's March. Those apples were picked in October. So the apples we have are very, very, very old. So eating in season, number one, you're going to have more of the life of the produce. Some of the things they do to keep the produce looking good is irradiation. So we have been trained that when we go grocery shopping, that we look for the most brightest and the leafy greens without any bug bites. But honestly, it's the opposite. If it has a bruise, it lets you know that it's real. If you find an apple or let's say a pear and it looks good, I mean, if you come back 3 weeks later and it's still there, it's still going to look good. And that's because microorganisms and bugs won't eat it because it's full of pesticides and it's been irradiated. And so then you take that in your body. But if you're eating organic and you're eating in season, again, like I said, when it's at your home, you have a very short shelf life. But it really works a lot better with your body. You're getting the right pollen in the right times and the right seasons. You're getting good bacteria. When you're buying irradiated, conventionally grown food, it has no good bacteria. And so your gut bacteria gets diminished over time because you're not getting any, probiotics from your food. And so then you end up having to spend $50 to $90 on probiotics when honestly those bugs were on your food if it was organically grown at some point. And that's why I'm very careful with even washing my food, not using chlorinated water but using filtered water because the chlorine kills the bugs. So I love eating in season because especially like in the fall, there's heavier root vegetables that helps you stay warm. And then in the summer and the spring, it's lighter greens, berries, right? And so that was kind of made for the body circadian rhythm in terms of what we need and our body temperature. And so we do get stuck, like I gave the example of the spinach smoothie every day, but it works against us. Really, we were made to forage and find different food. So let's say in ancient times, if I found this a sweet potato patch, I eat the sweet potato greens and then I eat the sweet potatoes. I would have to wait 9 months for another sweet potato patch to grow, and it might not grow in the exact same place. And so if I had overeaten the phytotoxins, it allows it to run out of my body. If you have a spinach smoothie every day, I guarantee you, over time, you're going to get kidney stones. Oxalic acid, it's just too high. And we've gotten so used to just driving instead of foraging and eating in season that we can, even when we're paying a lot of money for our produce, we can get our bodies out of balance.
Well, thank you so very much.
Yes,
you have
thank you.
been such an educator, as you always are. Carla teaches online, and she's an author of her recipes that she's published. And so we look forward to much more from you, Carla, and the healing of humanity. So we really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Life, love, and wellness.
Hi, I'm Jim Sholin. Born in Iowa, became a paramedic in 1990 because I had this passion to help people. The more I was around doctors and allopathic medicine, the more I started to question some of the things that were going on. So then I started looking at the natural component to healing. And even in the paramedic manual where it said start an IV if somebody was suspected of having a stroke, and start TPA, which is a clot buster, in the paramedic manual, actually 4 paragraphs lower, it said that major university studies show that a 325 milligram aspirin accomplished the same thing. So it was 2 cents versus $2,000, and I said something's wrong with this system. And so then I took Dr. Axe's online class, holistic medicine, attended the 10-day Living Foods Institute in Atlanta, Georgia, and basically just a researcher, probably 20-some years of researching.
Excellent, excellent. So you're so passionate about what you do. Was there any one incident in addition to that paramedic course that you took that inspired you to get started, or was it just the contrast between the two, the $2 versus the $2,000? Was there anything else?
I think it was mostly that. I did have a sister that had cancer. My mom had cancer, and I have a daughter that had cancer. So that's where I really started swinging from not just wanting to know about how to treat asthma or lowering your blood pressure naturally. I wanted to get into that side of things.
So do you specialize with individuals that have the appearance of cancer in their bodies?
If people come to me via email and want help, I love going over their protocols and maybe telling them things that don't jive with each other, that might contradict each other, or maybe I'll notice that they don't have anything to actually detoxify their body. So they might be killing cancer really well with different modalities, but they're not doing anything to get rid of that waste. And actually, you can really get sick and even die if you're killing cancer faster than you can detoxify it. So I might say, you really got to consider doing coffee enemas or Essiac tea or other things to help detoxify your body. That and, tell them that there's things they can do to keep stem cells from reproducing, how they need to change their diet, maybe exercising, like rebounding, for example, is an excellent way to get the whole lymphatic system moving, which is kind of our sewer system of the body. People think of, well, we have two systems, the lymphatic and the blood, but nobody really seems to, spend much time talking about the lymphatic. It's always the blood. Well, we have to get rid of those toxins, or eventually the blood will become toxic. So.
And in your research, that's where you're finding this information out, because a lot of times we're not given those words or those reasonings for why we may have disease in our bodies. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mm-hmm. So you do the nutritional aspect of healing, and you help people to understand. You said what their findings are once they have certain tests run.
Yep. You know, some of the people, like I'm helping someone currently that went to the doctor because they had bleeding and it got worse. And you know how a lot of people are, they'll put things off. And finally he says, well, I've been passing blood now for about a year. I better go into the doctor. So he had a colonoscopy, and the doctor says, well, you not only have diverticulosis, but you also have bowel cancer, and you need to see a surgeon as soon as possible. And this gentleman says, well, I don't have insurance, and I don't want to do chemo and radiation. And the doctor says, well, unless you do everything, we won't do the surgery. You're going to have to sign saying you're going to do the chemo and radiation. And so the doctor says, what I want you to do is go eat all the junk food you can and try to pack on about 15 pounds, because once you start doing the chemo, you're going to lose a lot of weight. So you want to get some weight on now. And he just knew, you know, that didn't make any sense to him. So he went and saw another oncologist who said the same thing. So he actually ended up walking away, did his own research for about a month or two, started taking turmeric and some of the other common things that people take. And then he reached out to me one night and said, you know, through Messenger, I hear that you work with people, or I see what you're doing online. Would you care to look at my protocol? And I said I would love to. And so we actually put him on the Budwig diet and had him take turmeric and antioxidants a little farther away from the actual meal, so it wasn't interfering with the Budwig meal. And had him take some mushrooms that are kind of awaken the immune system. Beta glucans do the same thing. And after about 2 months on that, he says, well, I can't see doctors or anything because they won't, you know, they won't do anything or take my blood anymore because I refuse to do all this. So I told him about the Navarro urine test, which is a test you do at home, and you send it in to the Philippines. It's like $55. Very accurate. In fact, it's known to pick up brain cancer 27 months before the person has any kind of symptoms. So it's very accurate. So he sent away for that. He kept getting strength every day that he was on the Budwig. I can proudly say he is 2 months past his death date, according to the surgeon. And he's gone back to work. I think he went back to work after being on the Budwig about 6 weeks. And he has a job. I probably better not say anymore, you know, because I got to protect his everything. But yeah, he's doing really well. So here, he didn't have any surgery. He didn't have any chemo or radiation, and he's doing really well. Dr. Budwig actually says, and I quote, if your body can create a tumor, your body can resolve it. And it acts like almost like a septic tank, you know, to put those rogue cancer cells in so that they're not completely going through the body. So in allopathic medicine, what's the first thing they want to do? They want to take those lymph nodes out. They want to get that tumor out, but they're not addressing why did this person get cancer? And that's the real problem as I see it. And I think the whole allopathic community, the whole naturopathic community, holistic doctors see it the same way.
Excellent. And you call yourself a researcher, and that is, I'm sure, the reason why your experience is so expansive, because when you zone in or zoom into one particular aspect, like you were talking about with the allopathic doctor, let's just cut it out and then it's okay, that you get to really help people to understand their bodies and the ability that the body has to regenerate itself. And I believe that's where our
wellness, our healing is going to come from is our own personal.
I totally agree with
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yep. God, we are wonderfully and perfectly made. You know, when you're a kid and you get a cut on your arm, what happens in a few days? You know, it goes away. I think allopathic medicine, people forget that the institutions that train doctors, a lot of those institutions were taken over by pharmaceutical companies that would say, hey, we'll give you $10 million to study so-and-so. And what do you think about that? And the university obviously is going to say, yeah, that's great. And then, of course, the next thing they say is, well, you know, because we're giving you this amount of money, you surely wouldn't mind if we kind of have one or two people on the board just so we know, you know, make sure everything's being spent correctly. And so, a few grants later, half of the board is controlled by the pharmaceutical company, and what are they studying? Things that benefit the pharmaceutical company. There are so many times you go to a doctor today, and because commercials run all day long, from the time you get up till the time you go to bed, you know, some of those things start even playing in your head because you can't get away from them. And so you go to the doctor, and the doctor says, how you feeling? Well, I have this little thing. Oh, yeah, what do you think about this drug? And the next thing you know, you walk out with a drug, which doesn't, again, address the underlying problem. It just, you know, addresses the symptoms. And sometimes the side effects can be worse than the symptom. And then pretty soon you're on 2 or 3 drugs, and then you're causing your body other issues, and it's kind of like a downhill thing from there. So, yeah, healing our own bodies comes from clean water, good living, good eating, you know, spiritually being where you should be, emotionally. That will keep you with a long, healthy life, in my thinking.
And I've heard you quote scripture to back up the work that you do in as far as advising individuals that our bodies are made to heal themselves. Can you give reference to any of those scriptures, like with essential oils or eating of the earth?
Revelations 22:2 basically talks about the tree, and there's rivers on both sides of the tree or whatever. It's talking about the tree of life, which some people think is the olive tree, because olives are mentioned so many times, and olive oil is good for you, and that's basically all they had back then was flour and olive oil to make bread and stuff like that. But essential oils are made from the leaves, and in 22:2, towards the end of the verse, it says, and the leaves of the trees will be for the healing of the nations. And then I have a couple scriptures on my website. One is Genesis 1:29, where it says, you know, of the trees that bear fruit, and the seed shall be for your meat. And I'm trying to think of the other one that I have. Anyway, there's several scriptures that point out this is what we should be eating or how we should be eating. Cumin is black cumin seed. Everybody, well, I shouldn't say everybody, a lot of people know the power of black seed oil. And turmeric. A lot of these essential oils and spices that are actually used against cancer are all throughout the Bible. So I can see his healing hand, you know,
Yes.
trying to tell his people what to do.
What you do and how you do it is so powerful. So you identified through your own family the health issue that you just wanted to look at perhaps in the beginning, and so you started doing the research, and in gathering of your knowledge, you also was able to support it with scripture, and so that makes it even that much more viable and reliable for people to incorporate into their lives. So you were talking about cancer. Is there any particular stages that you deal with when people come to you? Does it matter, you know, if it's first, fourth, or somebody that comes from a family where cancer runs in the genes, so they say, that you would help? Do you help all people, or?
I try to help everybody. You know, it's my passion, and I think it's what God placed on my heart. And I actually prayed that I could help people. You know, when I saw that whole thing with Father Diorio, where he was so moved by these people suffering that he just says, you know, Lord, how can I help these people? And then he had the gift of healing. So you know, I've always prayed for that, and I think between the paramedic class and the passion to help people, because I've been on both sides, the emergency medicine side, I've been, you know, like 30 years of that. So, and the naturopathic about 20 now. So, between the two, he's blessed me with this passion to learn more. To answer your first question, Sandy, no, it doesn't matter what stage. In fact, Dr. Budwig, the German scientist, blood specialist, lovely lady, she passed, I think, in 1999 at 97 years old, within a year or so. She was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize 7 times. When she was having such good results with cancer, American doctors and people came over and wanted to know how she did it. And she says it's real simple, it's just this. They actually left and she was blackballed, or, you know, called a quack, even though she had a cure rate of above 90% for stage 4 cancers. And when you read about her, you'll find out that there have been people that were stage 4 and they weren't, they were in and out of consciousness and expected to die within days to a week. And she would actually take the Budwig meal, which is a combination of, she used quark and flaxseed oil. We can do the same thing here there's some places that sell quark, or I would recommend Nancy's cottage cheese. And the combination of the flaxseed oil, and you can find all that on my website, but that combination will bring oxygen into the cells. It will let the flaxseed oil become water soluble when you mix it with that sulfurated protein of the cottage cheese. And so your cells actually communicate better. It works on like 3 or 4 major principles. She would take that protocol and do a rectal enema of it. And they would start talking, you know, they'd come around, and then from there they would progress very rapidly to a state of health. And she might have to do that a couple times a day until they could start taking it orally. It is a very powerful modality against cancer. And then there's other things that you can actually add to that, like apricot kernels. You can take Essiac tea, beta glucans to improve your immune response. Yeah, there's a lot of wonderful God-given modalities out there that are awesome against cancer.
Excellent, excellent. So you're on your website. You've mentioned it a couple of times. So if you want to give us that information, and then also, what do you include on your website?
It's just kind of a gathering of I call them like blog pages that I created, and I think I've been up about a year and a half, and I have 75 different blog pages. The one I just did a couple days ago is on, sometimes in a week I'll do 3 or 4, so I'm trying to think of what the last one it was on treating asthma naturally, and the one before that is treating Crohn's, and the one before that is it might be depression, but I try to cover every major thing that people deal with today, like adrenal fatigue, treating kidney disease naturally. Because you're told, that there's absolutely nothing you can do for kidney disease. It's, you're going to have to either get a transplant or go on dialysis. But I list the studies, like under kidney disease. When you look at that blog post, they'll say PubMed study on what MCP, modified citrus pectin that we were talking about earlier, Sandy, how that helps the kidneys. Some other things that help the kidneys are, I take bentonite clay daily because I went through so many things years ago, such strong antibiotics and stuff like that my kidneys aren't where they should be. and eating healthy, obviously, and it lists some of the foods that improve it, like green tea extract or drinking green tea. So there might be a list of 12 or 13 things that all slightly improve the kidneys. But if you're at stage 4 and you do these things for a couple months, and the next time you go to the visit you're only stage 2, that may mean that you'll be able to live all the way to 90 or 100 and never have to worry about kidney disease again. So it's important. The food, it needs to be our medicine.
Indeed, indeed. And I was smiling as you mentioned some of these health conditions like Crohn's, asthma, and kidney, because especially of those 3, it's something that we are told it's once you start on medications that you would have to take these medications and or have the organ, like in Crohn's, which is something I experienced. I was told that if I did not take the medicine made me sick. And so I told the doctor that I couldn't take it. And so she sent me to a specialist. And so his wise words were that I would either take the medicine, he could give me a surgery and cut it out, but there was no guarantee that it would not return, or he would start injecting me with steroids. And so none of those appealed to me. And I was able at that point to learn that that your body does have the ability to heal itself. And so as you're talking about with the bentonite clay with kidneys and asthma, that regardless to what may be the popular belief, that our bodies are designed to heal themselves.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Speaking of Crohn's, because I found out some stuff in my research that I didn't know, how powerful juicing organic green cabbage is for Crohn's or ulcers, period. The PubMed studies actually show that when a conventional doctor was trying to heal ulcers and they would either use medication or a special diet, the average ulcer would take 42 days to heal. But the people that drank a quart of organic green cabbage juice a day, those ulcers went away in 6 to 7 days. That's a huge, huge difference.
Yes, yes. Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing. In your ministry, and that's what I'm going to call what you do, because that is the type of passion and compassion that you have for individuals that come to you for information and for knowledge on wellness. In your ministry, is there a special message that you impart to the people that come to you for help?
That they are truly loved by their Creator, and that He wants them to be well, and not to listen to someone that says, if you don't do this, you'll be dead in 6 months, because they didn't create you. They actually have no idea. And someday this guy that I was telling you about earlier that walked away and is back to work and doing so well, someday we hope to go visit his oncologist and just, have a little sit down with him and let him know that actually it kind of aggravates me in a way, to be honest with you, Sandy, because not only doesn't the doctor know, but you know the power of the spoken word. It's in the Bible how powerful the word is. True. And so he speaks that word, and if you listen to that word, you're going to become a that prophecy is going to happen. You're going to let it happen.
Right.
And that is why it's so wrong on so many levels. But just know that your Creator loves you, and He gave you these avenues to your health by eating a certain way, and if you follow that, and if there's unresolved anger or something in your life and you resolve that, your body is going to heal itself 99% of the time. Because emotions, the spiritual, the emotional part, eating right, detoxifying in case you have parasites or you have heavy metals. Part of the reason that it's so bad today is look at our food. You know, you look at the Amish and how they prepare their food. Remember, the Amish don't get vaccines. But do you see them as an unhealthy population? I sure don't. They can work in those fields all day long. But you know, we're spraying these chemicals and herbicides, fungicides, pesticides, you name it, and we're taking that in day after day, and we're breathing, you know, the air. We're taking it in through. Every state in the union has cadmium in their water. We're getting bombarded from so many sources. So you take away those causes, and the body will definitely heal itself.
Great point. And one other viewpoint I would like to get from you is that we know that each one of our body organs replaces itself over a certain length of time. And if a person is diagnosed, say with sclerosis of the liver, would it not be possible to not only heal that condition, but for the body then to produce a new organ?
Yes, it can be done. It's funny that you should bring that up. I did one on treating liver disease, and it talks about cirrhosis and the different things. But the people that go to my website and watch, or if they happen to click on that one and look at treating liver disease naturally, there's a video, and because I'm exposed to so many doctors' names, because like when I go home, I'll be back on the internet, listen to the lectures and reading research and stuff, and so I can't honestly remember his name. But in this video, I said I gotta post this video. So they hired this doctor, and he was talking about when he came to work at the practice. They said, okay, we have two patients that had eaten poison mushrooms, and they're going to be dead in about 2 weeks. I want you to go up and learn what you can about them. And so he went up, and he knew the power of ALA, which is alpha lipoic acid, and liver regeneration. So he goes up there, and instead of listening to what the doctor told him he had to do, he started on an infusion on him of alpha lipoic acid. So at the end of 2 weeks, they were thriving. Neither one of them dead. They were both thriving. And he actually got chewed out. And he says, they said to me, what are you more concerned about, the patients here or how the doctors look when we tell the family that these people are going to be dead and now they're doing well? And he knew, you know, what state of affair are we in that we're more worried about how we look than the care of our patient. So alpha lipoic acid is good for regeneration. Turmeric is good for regeneration. And I'll have studies, and usually after studies I'll have like 5 little stars or whatever, so that you can find those studies right away on what you can do to help regenerate your liver and extend your life. You know, even if they're saying it's too late, it isn't always too late.
Thank you so much. That was just something that came to me recently, and when we stop and we're not scared, the life is not scared out of us by various authorities, then we are relaxed enough to be open to our body's healing.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
And what message would you like to leave the audience in reference to creating wellness within one's lifestyle or lifetime?
You know, everybody's different and everybody has a busy life and that, but there's studies that show, oh, by the way, I have posts on Alzheimer's, I have posts on Parkinson's. A lot of these diseases, you know, things can be changed. For instance, Alzheimer's, there's a great video that's about 40 minutes long, and this doctor was using like CoQ10 or ubiquinol as the better form once we get over 35 or 40 years old, and making sure you're getting healthy fats, like adding wild caught salmon or taking a good krill or fish oil capsule, getting a lot more coconut oil in your body every day, because that is so good for your thyroid gland. It's good for your liver, gives you energy, helps you lose weight. But just adding some of these protocols, getting exercise in. Some of these people, well, I have I think it's a UCLA study where they followed these people that ask them, you have to do a half an hour exercise, I think it was every day, and you took these supplements and everything, and some of these people that had Alzheimer's actually got off of disability and went back to work. So, each person is different, but try and eat more fruits, more veggies. Try to get away from fried foods, meat, especially with the way meat's mass produced. If you have a farm and it's ethically raised and taken care of, and you have that a couple times a week, I see no problem with that. But yeah, just make sure you're drinking clean water, exercise, spiritual time with the Lord, emotional cleansing, all that's so important to our health.
Well, thank you so much. You are such a deep reservoir of passion for people, and you share your knowledge so openly. I appreciate the contributions that you make to the wellness of humanity.
Thank you for those kind words, Sandy.
Thank you.
Life, love, and wellness.
My name is Star Waters, and I am in Atlanta, Georgia. And I am happy to be here with you today, sharing what little knowledge I have on the topic of spirituality. So, when you think of spirituality, many people get it confused with religion. Spirituality is something that we gift to ourselves. It helps us to stay sane, it helps us to be grounded, and it helps us to be able to navigate our moods and our intentions of what we want in life. And there are things that we can do. Well, first of all, let me just say, I want you to just close your eyes for a moment and envision a pool of water. Now what I want you to do is to envision someone throwing a rock in the water. You'll probably notice that there's going to be a little bit of noise, a whole lot of splash, and all of that calmness that you envisioned at first is now going to be disrupted. And it's going to be wavy and all of that for a long time. Now I want you to go back and have that same memory of the water that's calm. And I want you to think of someone throwing a pebble in the water. There'll be not any noise, and there will be ripples. And the ripples will kind of go out like in a circle all around. That's what spirituality is. And when we gift ourselves with the ability to bring spirituality into our life at will, when we beckon it, it helps us to stay well. And that's what this whole series is all about, is wellness. So how would one practice spirituality? Well, there are many ways that you can do that. And one of the ways is to, at command, bring calmness to yourself. And you can do that simply by, even if you're in a crowded place, just take a moment and take some deep breaths. Just really deep breaths, because that's the one thing that we lack, is breathing deeply. We have these little short, those kind of breaths, even though they may not be as exaggerated as I just did. But take some deep breaths. And when you take a deep breath, you want to put your hands on your stomach. And as you breathe in, you want to see your stomach go out. And then breathe out, and the stomach goes back in. So I'll demonstrate. And as you probably noticed, I took a few seconds to hold the breath within me. You cannot imagine just doing that simple steps of taking deep breaths can just calm you down. So taking deep breaths is a way that we can center ourselves. Also, one of the things that I have seen happening today is that there is just overload of media stimulation, where it has us frightened, confused, angered. All of these emotions take away our ability for wellness. So one of the things that I would suggest doing too is to give yourself the ability to take a fast away from the media. A fast, oh please don't get upset with me now, away from Facebook, so that we are not bombarded with overstimulation of things that, let's face it, we have no control over, but it still goes into our body and it makes us feel a certain kind of way, okay? And then once we have that infused in our body, now what do we do with it? So we gotta repeat it and repeat it again and repeat it again. And then all of a sudden we're even more upset. So give yourself opportunities to take media Facebook fast, even if it's for a half a day, or stretch it out to a day, just so that you can have control of what goes into your body. When you take a television fast, you're not, okay, so the TV is on, and you may not even be watching it, but you are hearing the words that are coming through. And we have absolutely no control over what's gonna come over the airwaves. And then it hits us and really, oh my God, 30 people died, we've lost it. We are not in control, we're not grounded. So it's another way of helping us to bring our spirituality into full force. Another way that we can bring about spirituality is to go on a talking fast. So from what I have heard is that we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We should be listening more than we speak. So when you're taking a talking fast, this is a great opportunity to be an observer and just listen and not have anything to say. First of all, it builds your muscles for control, self-control. And the less that you speak, the less that you're taking away from your energy. it's so important for us to just watch what's going on around the world. Spirituality, I'm going to repeat, is not religion. It's a gift that we give to ourselves. And in order to stay grounded, spirituality is the way to go. Now, I've asked many people, do you meditate? And almost everybody that I ask emphatically says yes. But when I probe a little bit more how they meditate, it's generally that they have quiet time and they sit down and read. Well, that's great. I'm sure it's very relaxing, but that's not what meditation is. So when we pray, we're actually asking for something. We're asking our source for something. Meditation is the complete opposite, where we take the time to sit back and be still and listen for the answer. And when you meditate, you are actually not doing anything but just relaxing and using your skills of breathing, like I showed you in the beginning, and just being still and just be. Just sit and be. Now, many times when people meditate, they said they didn't feel anything. And a lot of times they said, I went to sleep. It's okay, because it's very relaxing. And with practice, it gets better. So when you don't know what you're supposed to feel like, you think that it's not working. But it's something that I do daily as a daily practice. I start off my meditation as soon as I wake up, and I meditate for 20 minutes. What it does is it centers you, it grounds you, and you have the ability to listen for direction. I've also found that what it has done for me is it has answered questions to perhaps situations that I have encountered with other people, giving me an answer to, that particular thing. And if I go several days without meditating, I know it, because I'm not as clear, whereas meditation brings clarity. I'm not as clear. I'm like stumbling through life. It's like I'm off my balance. I'm just not there, and they'll hit me. Oh, I haven't meditated for a couple of days. And it starts my day off serene and zen, and I'm able to take the punches of life. I'm able to go with the flow. And that's what I really like about, being able to meditate. My family and I, when my daughter was about 5 years old, took a 3-day transcendental meditation workshop. And we all received mantras. And at the time we were told never to tell anyone what our mantra is. And what I love about our family, none of us ever says, so what's your mantra? What's your mantra? We allowed the sacredness of our mantra to be her mantra, my husband's mantra. My daughter, like I said, was about 6 years old. And it has been the best gift. That was the best 3 days of my entire life, because I have been able to rein in whatever anger or being upset or whatever my emotions might be in just my 20-minute session of meditation. But to get up and to stretch, and I mean really stretch your body and hold those stretches, it just not only works on our mental ability, but it also works on the inner part of our body, because all of those stretches really work on your inner organs. And so it's helping you to be well throughout. You don't have to have any other type of doctrines in order to do meditation. Like I said, meditation is a gift. Any of us can do it. Even if you build up to full-fledged meditation, even if you just take 5 minutes a day and just sit in a quiet place, even if it means leaving your desk at work and going to the bathroom, locking the bathroom door, and just sitting there for 5 minutes with your eyes closed and thinking about nothing, that can revitalize you and help you to get through the rest of the day. Because what meditation does is it energizes you. And for those people that say, oh, I don't know, I went to sleep on it, you were in a deep sleep. No matter how, it could have only been like 2 minutes, you don't even know. But what it does is it revitalizes you, it gives you energy. It's way, way better than a cup of coffee. But without the caffeine and it gives you that calmness, and it's just awesome. So I know many times I've been in meditation and maybe something occurred in my life, maybe the day before or whatever, and during the meditation, it's so clear as to what that transpired, why it happened, and what I'm to do about it. So it's not just in the here and now. It could be from days ago. It can even be from days before, helping me to bridge the path to where I need to go. I can even have like pictures in my mind of what it is that I'm supposed to do. So it's not a thing of where you hear voices or whatever, but it can be symbols and pictures, and it's just so beautiful. And there's no other way to get that but through spirituality. Definitely start off with yourself, even if it's to sit for 5 minutes, and then increase it to 10 minutes, and increase it to 15 minutes until you do 20 minutes. I think the great amount of time to do it is 20 minutes. And as I said before, we did it in the morning for 20 minutes and then in the evening for 10 minutes. You don't want to do it too late because it's going to give you energy. So you don't want to be up, all night, because you will be energized. And also meditation works best on an empty stomach. So if you're doing it in the evening, you want to make sure that you haven't eaten anything. You might maybe have a cracker or something if you're really hungry, but it's just something about an empty stomach that is going to help you to elevate mentally. And that's what it's all about, is elevation of the spirit. I have practiced very shortly Taoism, and I went for a 4-day weekend retreat on Taoism. And although they were speaking another language, most of the time I did not know what they were saying. But because it was a spiritual retreat, it's almost like having someone to transmute to you on a non-verbal level, where you're like mind to mind. And out of that whole weekend, what I most received was that we are here on earth to be happy. I would say, as a parting message, that if your life is not working at the capacity that you would like for it to be working, if you are not truly, truly happy, And if you are not truly, truly as healthy as you would like to be, what have you got to lose? Come on, let's be honest with yourself. What have you got to lose? Step back, be still, sit down, and listen. Listen to your inner voice, because there is where you will find the answer. It reminds me of Iyanla Vanzant. I heard her say that when she would ask her father any question, his answer was always the same. Sit down, shut up, and listen. She said it didn't matter what subject it was on, the answer was always sit down, shut up, and listen. And it wasn't until he was not around that she was thinking about asking him the question, and his voice entered her mind. Sit down, shut up, and listen. That's exactly what you do when you meditate. You are opening up your heart and you're opening up your ears to hear the voice of God. So why not do it?
Thank you, Miss Star Waters. What an honor.
My pleasure.
Life, love, and wellness.
Today, I have the honor of interviewing my son, Malcolm Tyson. And I'm going to let him give a description of who he is and how he shows up in the world so that you get to know him from his perspective. Malcolm?
From my perspective, oh wow, okay. Came in this world from California. 42 years old, father of an 18-year-old daughter, and I like to run a little bit. When I say run a little bit, I like to participate in marathons, half marathons, 10Ks. I like to test my endurance, like to strength train, and like to give back. You see from the little band-aid on my arm, gave a little blood this morning, well this afternoon. Always trying to give back, trying to make the world a better place than how I found it. And that's pretty much Malcolm Tyson.
All right, great. Thank you. So what motivated you to begin running?
What motivated me to begin running was seeing my aunt, Janice, go through some health complications, and at the end of her life, she was really taking a turn to get healthier and was at the gym a lot, and she clowned me. She took me to her little senior gym and just talked about me, said, Mac, you gotta do better. You gotta take care of your health. You have to invest in your health. And my auntie knows everything, so of course I had to do something. So I started going to the gym. Instead of just lifting weights, I started trying to actually get some cardio in on the treadmill. And this older guy, Caucasian, was next to me on the treadmill, and he dusted me. And I'm a competitive person, and I just could not, I couldn't let it end that way. So 15 full marathons later, that's why I run.
15. Wow. So were you always athletic?
Never athletic as a child. Didn't play any high school sports or middle school sports. Elementary ran track, but it was just an activity. Really wasn't organized or something to do. Never got any type of training, official training or anything like that. So no, I was never athletic as a child.
Okay. And before we really get into the marathons, I know that a few years ago, you and a group of your fellow runners were in and out of the inner city communities or the neighborhoods.
Yes.
And so why, what prompted that, and what was the purpose and the intention behind that?
A friend of mine went to school in Nashville, and I was going to run a marathon in Nashville. So he came up with me, and I think it's a 4 or 5 hour car ride. So we, really got to chatting and talking. And on the way back, he had this vision that he wanted to start running instead of just on the suburban trails. He wanted to take into the inner cities and let them see that we run the inner cities as well, because that's who we are. So that's what we did. It started off a few of us, I think maybe 3-4 people in the beginning, and the word just spread like wildfire. People still talk about it to this day and ask always, hey, when you guys want to do the neighborhood runs? At first we was calling it the hood runs because it was inner city, but then we changed it up and said, let's be a little bit broader and call it a neighborhood run. And when I say we ran past plenty of strip clubs, liquor stores, fast food, chicken spots on every other corner, and the love we received was just tremendous. Older guys, older women, younger generation, everybody was just in awe of us actually running, not running from something, but just being physically active in our neighborhoods. It's not really seen in this day and age.
Yeah, that's a good example that you were able to set. And that's one of the main reasons behind this webinar, is to familiarize people with other ways that they can take care of themselves and live a healthier lifestyle. And so you say that people were applauding you because they hadn't really ever noticed that or hadn't seen that before.
I think people feel like the inner cities aren't safe to run in. Another reason why I took up running, because I'm cheap and it's very affordable. All you need is good shoes, and really that's it. You can get into a little bit more of the gear, but nobody was running in the inner city. Nobody's seen, it was around the parks in the suburban areas where people felt like it was safe. So we just wanted to show, especially in numbers, that it was safe for men and women to run in the inner city. And that was the whole thing. You don't see that. I frequent the inner city and I don't see people running at any time. Or if they are running, they're not doing it for physical activity. They're doing something dangerous or of a criminal aspect. So to see people run for fun is just what we want to show. The camaraderie between us, how we would I think energy doesn't go away. And when we brought that positive energy amongst ourselves, it went into the neighborhoods and came back. People supporting us, giving us high fives, honking their horns. It was, the love was something that you just can't duplicate. To get ready for the marathon, I didn't spend any money at all. I did my own research, got on Google, looked up training plans, and it all started from a 5K, which is 3.1 miles. And when I ran my first 5K, I didn't tell anybody. I had a broken hand at the time. I ran my first 5K with a cast on, and I was so excited and pumped after that then for my next race, I invited my mom and my daughter. And from there, I went from a couch, it was called a Couch to 5K program for the 5K. And then my friends started getting behind me, and chokes me up. Because they saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And they saw that I was stronger than I gave myself credit for. They said, Mac, you can do it. You can do anything. And I did. I went from that first 5K, 3.1 miles, stretched it out a couple times, got some 10Ks, which is 6.2 miles, ran a couple of those under my belt, and a year to the date from my first 5K, I ran at 26.2 miles. And if you can survive running for 26.2 miles, you can do anything. And nothing has stopped me since. It's just mind state. Whatever you put your mind to, you can do it. And that's that.
That seemed to be such a character builder, a motivator, like a inspiration when you set goals, to be able to bring that confidence from doing those races in, and obviously it was something that you hadn't expected to be a byproduct.
I think it was the inner peace when you're alone for hours at a time. It took me 4 hours and almost 4.5 hours to run my first marathon. So when you're training and you start going over, 30 minutes, and it's a lot of time to think, a lot of time to appreciate nature. It's a lot of time just to appreciate life. As you're running, you see on the trails, you see cyclists, you see babies, you see birds, you see wildlife, you smell. It's a whole body experience, because running is just putting one foot in front of the other and to keep going. So it's really nothing to learn. It's just to keep going. And when you feel like you can't go, you might slow down, walk a little bit, and then you keep going. And it's marathon running is life. Is until you expire, you just keep putting one foot in front of the other and see how far you can go. And that's what I love about marathon. It's not a sprint. It's not how fast I can get 50 yards. It's, do I have the endurance, the mental fortitude to stop when my whole body is saying, this is enough. Why are we doing this? You keep going. And that's my life motto now. Keep going. I have asthma. It flares up from time to time. I have an inhaler that I have to use. On my very first 20-mile run, I hit the wall, and I was got real weak, and but I did that 20 miles. So I set a doctor's appointment. Went to the doctor, had all of my blood work run, urine run, and basically I didn't eat enough. So I had to learn to balance the nutrition with the running. And that is really when I knew I was unstoppable then, when it was just bring some peppermints with you. And it's inexpensive things. You don't have to carry or buy the brand name gels and different things. You can make your own stuff. And I found out that a bagel and a banana before I ran, keep a couple bananas, and I mean bananas are like 50-60 cents a pound, very cheap, but it's all you need. Peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I mean, on that 20-mile run, when I started feeling fatigued and lightheaded, I had my daughter make me a peanut butter jelly sandwich by the time I came home. Came home, ate that peanut butter jelly sandwich, and hot shower, and it's good to go. Ready to do it again. The finish line is the it's really the end of your hard work. For the first marathon, it took me a year to train. Now, I say it takes about 12 to 16 weeks to get in marathon shape. And so the finish line is I could do anything. I could do anything because only 1% of the population, 1% complete a marathon. So when you put yourself and say only 1% has done this, it puts yourself in a mental, I'm unstoppable. I did it. I did what 99% of the population don't do. And you just, it's a legal high. It's a runner's high. And it's very addictive. The running the marathons, you have to pay an entrance fee. So I stopped doing that as of late, and now I just run for fun. I still might do, well, we haven't really done any long runs lately, but I like to give back. I've been volunteering more lately. Had a all women's race that I volunteered at a couple of weeks ago. Volunteering at this one is for children, doing a children's run this weekend that I'm volunteering for. So I just like to give back to the community, seeing other people do it. I think I've accomplished everything that I want to accomplish. So now I just want to share the love, the health benefits that you get from it, the mental benefits that you get from it, and just try to share that with younger generation or people that's not acclimated, or so I just like to give back.
And when you say that, I know you have several friends that, like when I first meet them, they'll be like, yeah, because Malcolm, I was on the run and I was stopping. And then here come Malcolm slapping me on my back. So you're known as the motivator out there on the track or the route, when you guys be running. And that means so much to the people that have shared the stories with me.
Well, I think 9 times out of 10 when people run, they make these ugly faces that, it looks painful, and I never want to be that guy. Out of all of and I have a few race photos, I never am frowning. I never look like I'm in pain. It's a battle. It's a battle. This is you versus unhealthiness, and it's a war. So I play to win. I'm very competitive, but I just don't want to win personally. I want us all to win. So if I can encourage someone, because we're all competitive, whether it's female or male, we're all competitive. So the story my mom was talking about, it was a 10-mile race, and this guy was beating me for 9 miles. So, he started to walk at about the 9-mile mark, and I let him know, we don't walk, we run, and we finish strong, and see, that's that love.
Yeah.
It's really love.
Yeah.
Genuine. When I first started running, I'd never really seen people that looked like me. It was a few scattered here and there, but I never seen people that looked like me. So I did a little research, and it was a couple of organizations. Well, it really wasn't. No, it was some running groups, but there wasn't any minority-based running groups at the time. And then they sprouted up, and they kind of were a little too cliquish for me. So I joined for a little while, and then I left it alone, because the battle, as I call it, that I do when I run is personal. It's individual. It's not something that it's not a group sport. We don't but I got some good friends that are in organizations, and some of them are very loyal to their organizations, and they stay with one another the whole while. But I just like to, do things my own way. So sometimes I might had a friend that never ran a 13.1 miles, which is the half marathon. So he said, "Hey man, would you run with me?" So sometimes I'll slow down to help other people achieve their goals because I know I can do it, but the bond you get from reaching back and having someone else accomplish some goals that they didn't think that they could do, it's powerful. And it's that good karma. It just keeps coming back to bless me over and over again. I paced a friend this past weekend it was just a little 5K, but it meant the world to them. And something as, I probably could have finished it in 20 something minutes, but we slowed down and walked a little bit, but that comfort that they got, it helped them out. So it helps me out.
So it's not just a sport. From what you're saying,
It's a lifestyle.
Yeah.
It's a brotherhood, a sisterhood. When the friends that I got that do run, we run in different states. I just had a friend that finished doing the 6 major marathons, which is Boston, New York, Tokyo, Berlin. I can't remember the other ones, but people are going international, going to Paris, I had a friend run in Africa. I mean, wherever there's people are running at and running marathons. I mean, it's no limit. It's not just running. It could be addictive. It could get expensive, but the bonds, the friendships that you make when you're in the trenches with these people, I think it's gonna last forever. I'm relatively new. What it's been 4 or 5 years. I stopped counting. I think it's been like 4 or 5 years now since I first put on my first pair of shoes. Learned a lot, and continue to keep going. I want to be that old person slapping people on the butt. I've been running a little while. Okay.
So as we go through this and the experiences to help people to be better, get better, stay better, is there any advice that you would give, especially to the younger individuals like yourself, as far as
40's young now?
Well, yeah.
Okay.
Or younger.
When I felt young, I felt 40 was old. But okay, 40 years
So
old.
now
Okay.
you think you're old?
Yeah, I'm old man.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I got a grown daughter, college daughter. Yeah, I'm old man.
Okay, old man.
So when you say young, I'm thinking adolescent. I'm thinking high school, college age, and that was the second part of the blueprint that my friend had. But he was working on his PhD, so we kind of slowed down to accomplish his goal, which he just accomplished a couple of weeks ago. So the second part of that, running in the neighborhoods and in the inner city, was going out to these colleges. And instead of drinking and partying, showing some type of healthiness lifestyle. And so that was the other thing. We just wanted to be healthier. I don't think it's a such thing as you have to eat or diet or this, that, and the other. Just be healthier than what you are already. And that's pretty much, so for the young people, do something. Whether it's a meatless Monday and giving up meat or drinking more water. I think if you try to do too much at one time, you won't stick with it. So find something that you enjoy. I enjoy running. I really don't like it. It hurts, but it's cheap. I love the peace that it brings. I love that runner's high. And so I'm going to continue to, I guess it would be a sport. I guess you would call running a sport. So I will continue to be an ambassador to the sport of running and to try to spread it as far as it can go, because the benefits are abundant and it's awesome.
So did you think about the benefits when you first started? Or you just started because of your auntie?
I started because of my aunt, and as I was going through the process, especially on those first long runs, we would have conversations. She wouldn't talk back, but auntie, I was like, auntie, why you got me doing this, you know? And she never let me down. No, I didn't think about the how big some of the things that we were doing, because I feel like I'm just a part of the community. I'm just one person, but it's a whole running community, and I got friends in just about any city I want to go to visit. I have friends there to run with, to if nothing else, grab a bite to eat. So it's become family. I don't even call them friends anymore. These are my sisters, brothers, cousins. Got some crazy uncles and some aunties, and you know, it's family. This is not just. And I guess that's one of the biggest things that I learned is I expanded my family. I can't even tell you how many family members I have now. It's absurd, the number of people I know in different cities that try to get me to come to different events and always trying to spend my money. But like I said, I got a daughter in college, so I had to slow that down.
Well, thank you, Malcolm. Was there anything else you want to share with the audience before we wrap it up?
Live your best life. Always try to be a better you. And don't stop until you can't. That's it.
Well, thank you so much, son.
Life, love, and wellness.
So greetings, my name is Lorraine Kelly McCall, and I am the owner of Breathe, Balance, Energize, an alternative energy medicine company. And our goal and our motto is to be in service of happiness. So I welcome this opportunity to speak to Mama Sandy today about living whole, being innate and authentic. The initial question proposed was, how do you stay positive? And my answer to that is having a very innate, authentic internal conversation with yourself about what you're saying is truth and what is not truth. And sometimes the stories we tell ourselves are very fictitious. They're not based on facts. They're more emotional and very just a response from ego. And or fear, or not feeling enough, or having enough. And so I really make a deliberate choice to make my choice from a place of love in my relationship with God and God's promise to me. And God's promise to me is that I'm blessed and that there's nothing I can't have. And as true as that is for me, it is true for every other human being that walks this planet. I think the only difference that stands between myself and those who are possibly not manifesting the things that they desire is that they don't believe. Like Will Smith talks about, if the moment you have a thought, it becomes a real thing. Like it begins like, it's like a seed. And the more you believe in it, it's like planting it with water. And that allows it to grow and begin to take like an actual physical form. And believe it or not, like the moment the universe hears, all right, they're onto something, good or bad, right? It will now start sending all of this energy that way in order to like bring it into fruition. And so the question is like, what do you want to create? And I want to create happiness. I want to create love. I want to be surrounded by creative love and light all the time. And I find when I live in that truth, I operate from that truth, and I speak from that truth, everything just feels like really delicious. Love is a relationship with the God in ourselves. And when I say the God in ourselves, meaning that the divine source that is in all things, and us being like a co-creator with God. So I know that when I am responsible for my words, when I'm responsible for my actions, and when I'm responsible for my thoughts and the script that I'm reading and co-signing on to as truth, like those few very vital fundamentals make up what my reality looks like. And it also determines how I feel about myself and the life that I'm living. And so ultimately, like I choose and make a deliberate choice to be happy regardless of what's going on. I don't want to give my power over to something outside of myself that clearly doesn't know what my highest good is for me. I work with angels. I call on divine sources, archangels. I call on rescue angels, and I ask, shed light. I ask for assistance. I ask for intervene in a way that I couldn't. Help in a way that I know not how to or have the tools and skills to do so. You know, the saying, as below, so above as below, like I believe in that. And just as you and I are these physical beings, I so wholeheartedly believe in angels and archangels and guardian spirits. Like we each have like this force of angels that have been assigned just to us, and they are waiting for instruction. And even sometimes if you don't know what that instruction should be, but just say, do what God's will is for my life, and help me to take those ordained guided steps, you know, where God would have me to go, I think I'm covered. And then working with energy, like using the practice of Reiki energy, but just not in terms of myself being a conduit of energy and passing it on to other people. We live in a society that really doesn't want you to understand the use of energy. And I'll give you an example. Recently, I saw this commercial where these kids have on like some type of virtual reality headset, and they have these gloves on, and the commercial shows them throwing energy at something. But the truth is, we can throw energy anywhere right now at this moment. I can imagine and say Shokore right here. I can swing a pendulum and say love light, love light, love light, love light, love light, and cultivate the light energy in my body, in my hand, and then I can say I am assigning this energy in this now, the love light energy, to heal my father. Because energy knows not time or place. That energy immediately goes to my father and it does the work assigned. And it's no different than when you dial that number that's assigned to your son Malcolm or your brother William, and how you're able to pick up a phone immediately. It's because you assigned an energy with information that sent out a frequency to say, William, Malcolm, pick up the phone. You have the scenarios when you call somebody and they'll be like, oh, I was just thinking about you. That's not a coincidence. That's energy. They were open to receive a frequency of your thought, or you were open enough to receive their frequency where you knew they would think of you. So you said, let me talk to them directly. And so I think learning how to cultivate energy and assign energy also has been one of the tools that I have been using in manifesting what I want in life. And just know it is like the most powerful tool. And when I say energy, be clear, love light energy. It is the most healing, the most powerful energy that walks this planet. And if you don't know how to use it, if you don't know how to cultivate it, then 10 times out of 10, you're letting all these external forces do it for you.
So how does one learn to do that?
You know what? I think, so no one taught me or helped me to say this is what energy does and this is what you should do. Like intuitively, I feel like it was whispered to me by God Force. And this is nothing that is just unique to my person. Like anyone can do this. The other thing I think is important in terms of understanding that everything is an energy. So one of the other, in terms of modalities or practices that I use, is that I choose to find out the translation of numbers. So every morning when I wake up, because I want to hear God clearly, I want to know what God wants me to know about today in terms of what my truth is, the support I am walking with. So if I wake up this morning like I did at 4:41 a.m., there's a message. And so actually you can just Google 441 angel number, and there's a whole message about what 4 means, what 1 means, and then the combination of that number in terms of what God wants you to know, what your angels want you to know, what archangels want you to know, and what is happening in your life right now. And you can do that at any time, just to have like an affirming voice about God is present, God is aware of your being and what's going on with you. You're not alone, right? And that everything is being taken care of. Yeah.
So if I don't have computer access at home, I could go to the library and get the information for the numbers you were just speaking of. The question is then, does the definition for the numbers change, or does
No.
what? Okay.
The definition for 1 is always the same definition for 1. The definition for the number 4 is always the same. Now, the combination of the number, 441 has a designated meaning. But if it was then 414, that has a completely different message to it.
Okay.
So it's the series in which how the numbers are aligned. And then it stops at a certain point.
Yes, I was just wondering for the listeners or the audience, for those that don't have a computer at home, you know, a
Right.
system.
Yeah, so I would definitely say go to the library. Go to the library, and what you could do, so the website is actually, it's called sacred numbers, but just put in the number 441 or any number and put angel number behind it. And I want to say it's Joanne's Sacred Numbers. That's the website that I choose to refer to. And you can print out what each number means. And then that way you can use it as a booklet that you can take home too. Now, so the numbers have their own individual meaning. Like to print out like 500 worth of numbers, and that's pretty expensive. So you can do it one number at a time, like whatever works for you. If you decide that you're going to say, okay, every time I go to the library, I'm going to choose a number that I saw today to find out what that message is. And then if that number should ever appear again, then you can always go back to it. So that's how I would proceed.
How easy has it been for you to accept and apply this knowledge that you're receiving from your higher consciousness, where people may criticize you for how you relate to people and to situations and things like that?
So I can say I've lived life my way. And when I lived life my way, it was stressful. I suffered medically, like physically, dealing with fibroids and excessive bleeding, extreme unhappiness, depression. And I mean, we can all attest, there's no fun trying to fit a measurement or a standard that someone else has created for us. And you know, because we all have our own learning curves, like at some point, hopefully everybody will get tired of hitting their damn head. Like, what they're telling us is a lie. And God has written upon our hearts our truth and who we're supposed to be innately and authentically. And so making the choice to no longer do things the way I thought was very easy, because when I did things my way, I got a lot of resistance, a lot of pushback, a lot of what I was considering, these are my rights. You know, I'm supposed to be afforded this based on X, Y, and Z. And, you know, we live in a world, we know that it doesn't matter how many laws that they have written that are to be applied and to govern all life. It doesn't mean we're always afforded them. And so, and then trying to go up against this system that has no intentions of ensuring your rights, your human rights, your it has no interest in ensuring your happiness, nor does it think it's responsible for it, but it wants to be responsible for everything else, like what you think, feel, what you buy, what you don't buy, what you put in your body, what you don't put in your body, what you put in your mind, right? It wants to be responsible for all of those things, but your happiness, your wholeness, your completeness, not so much. And so, from going from this little girl who used to sit in a bedroom and try to figure out, is God real, like make an elephant appear on my street if you're everywhere and you hear me, right? To knowing in this now at age 45 that what happens in the non-physical is possibly the most beautiful thing based on belief alone. Real easy to accept. Because when you surrender to God saying, let me prove to you I exist, you step into the flow of life. And it's nothing that you can't manifest like in this now. I went from 44 years of believing that I couldn't own a house because my income is well below what I would consider a homeowner to own. But it took somebody pissing my ass off and me changing my belief in that moment to 4 months later, me being a homeowner, and not just a homeowner just to say I have a homeowner where this home is going to make me money and pay for its existence. And it's going to be a place where people can come and be loved and cultivate their own life, love, energy, and be responsible for their healing and rejuvenation and a reassignment of their thoughts, and hopefully, navigate themselves to an understanding of who they are innately and authentically.
How do we deal successfully with holding our own and respecting the contrasting views of someone that we love and appreciate?
So I think why my successful relationships with other human beings is merely based on the removal of judgment. And understanding that nobody has to be anything to me, and nobody has to do anything for me. And so with that, I choose to practice and be in relationships where I love people unconditionally for who they are. But also in that love, I have to discern whether or not if this person belongs in a close proximity to my space or from a distance. And so if someone finds themselves in a relationship where there's all this criticism and judgment, and people want to tell you who you are and what you're not and what you should and should not do, I say set some boundaries. I say even run or remove them completely from your life, because you know who you are. You know what you want to be and do, and you don't need any other individual to do that for you. I think what is most important is to believe in yourself, and that there's something so much greater than you that is fully and wholeheartedly behind you in the actualization of your whole self. We read our own scripts that tear down and discourage and sometimes not believe in our best or highest good or our blessings are coming. And so who needs a party for that? So I would basically say the following. I would say to that individual, this is what I need in terms of us to have a healthy relationship. I need positive communication. I need my dreams and thoughts to be affirmed. And even if you don't believe it or co-sign on it, just be like, if that's your choice, I wish you well in that. And leave it there. And if they can't respect that, then just know that that's not maybe somebody you want to confide your thoughts, dreams, and beliefs in, because those are sacred. And outside of that, I'm like, just don't give your power over to anyone else in terms of what they think. It doesn't matter what they think. All that matters is what you think. And what you think is what you actualize. That's it. Recently, Will Smith came out with this video where he talks about self-love as self-discipline. And I think it's a pretty fantastic message about understanding that the practices that you make are a reflection of how you really feel about yourself. And I guess I couldn't say enough that internal conscious conversation that you should have with yourself about everything until it becomes automatic is really essential. I think the other thing that's really essential is scripting your life. Write it out. Dream like the most outrageous dream you could ever come up with and be like, I dare it to happen. Dare yourself to, do something every day that helps you actualize, manifest, be an alchemist of that particular thing. because there's nothing that's impossible. Every moment comes to us holding the present of infinite possibilities. And it's like, choose one, choose many, believe in them all, and it's possible. And then the judgment piece, put it away. Stop judging yourself. You don't have to be like anybody else. God uniquely made you for a reason. Figure out what you have been purposed to do. And it could be one thing, it could be many things. Like, today I'm an artist, tomorrow I'm a dancer, the next day I'm a meditation facilitator. Like, I receive it all. Like, wherever God says go, that's where I go. If God says talk to the stranger and deliver my word, then that's what I do. And there's no particular mode I am interested in filling other than the one that's called Lorraine Kelly McCall. And that energy is for me to define on a moment-to-moment basis, and I'm not apologetic for it. And whoever you are, you shouldn't be either. Life is about learning about all the things you have to gain. And if you have allowed fear to make you immobile, then you've already lost. So you have nothing to worry about losing, because you've already lost if you haven't tried. And it's one of those great speakers out there. I don't know if it's Dr. Brene Brown or some Oprah, but they always say that, successful people are people who have failed repeatedly to one day, get it right. And so if you fall, that's awesome. Now you can understand you have the power to get up, and not only recently Will Smith came out with this video where he talks about self-love as self-discipline, and I think it's a pretty fantastic message about understanding that the practices that you make are a reflection of how you really feel about yourself. And I guess I couldn't say enough that internal conscious conversation that you should have with yourself about everything until it becomes automatic is really essential. I think the other thing that's really essential is scripting your life. Write it out. Dream like the most outrageous dream you could ever come up with, and be like, I dare it to happen. Dare yourself to, do something every day that helps you actualize, manifest, be an alchemist of that particular thing, because there's nothing that's impossible. Every moment comes to us holding the present of infinite possibilities. And it's like, choose one, choose many, believe in them all, and it's possible. And then the judgment piece, put it away. Stop judging yourself. You don't have to be like anybody else. God uniquely made you for a reason. Figure out what you have been purposed to do. And it could be one thing, it could be many things. Like, today I'm an artist, tomorrow I'm a dancer, the next day I'm a meditation facilitator. Like, I receive it all. Like, wherever God says go, that's where I go. If God says talk to the stranger and deliver my word, then that's what I do. And there's no particular mode I am interested in filling other than the one that's called Lorraine Kelly McCall. And that energy is for me to define on a moment-to-moment basis, and I'm not apologetic for it. And whoever you are, you shouldn't be either. Life is about learning about all the things you have to gain. And if you have allowed fear to make you immobile, then you've already lost. So you have nothing to worry about losing because you've already lost if you haven't tried. And it's one of those great speakers out there. I don't know if it's Dr. Brene Brown or some Oprah, but they always say that, successful people are people who have failed repeatedly to one day get it right. And so if you fall, that's awesome. Now you can understand you have the power to get up, and not only the power to get up, but to learn from your fall, the gift that it offers, and then now you have one more tool for your next try to be even better. I say walk with all the love and light that God has given, and know that it's within you at all times. Call on it. It will respond accordingly. That's it.
So beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Mwah.
Thank you for being with us today. And we know that you enjoyed our awesome, incredible speakers. And we certainly appreciate you as being a part of this groundbreaking historic event. And so we invite you to tomorrow perhaps invite a couple more of your friends over, or how about at your church or your synagogue or your mosque, invite people and have a viewing party so that you can have a discussion afterwards. And so we look forward to being with you tomorrow with another group, anywhere from 5 to 7 incredible individuals that's going to share of their expertise, their love, their passion, because our speakers cover a wide variety of subjects, and it's things that you can immediately put into effect in your life. So thank you for being with us. We'll see you tomorrow.
Life, love, and wellness. Life, love, and wellness. Life, love, and wellness.
And that's what I want, more just what I need.